I guess we'll get started. So I will introduce Stella first, and then I'll pass my time to Ms. Enki. Stellar is an open source network for the storing and moving of money. The Stellar Development Foundation, or SDF, is a non-profit organization founded in 2014 to support the development and growth of the open source Stellar network. SDF and Stellar seek to unlock the world's economic potential by making money more fluid, markets more open, and people more empowered. The foundation helps to maintain Stellar's code base, supports the technical and business community around Stellar, and is a speaking partner to regulators and institutions. All right, you may begin the workshop. Oh, you are muted, I think.
All right, so is this better?
Yep.
Sorry, I actually asked you to unmute on an accident. Perfect. Well, thank you so much for introducing me. I'm super excited to host this workshop with you. My name is Anke Liu, and I work on community events, university relationships, and more at the Stellar Development Foundation, or SDF for short. I think you already had a little introduction of SDF, but I'll do a little bit in as well. But my colleague Tyler will join me shortly as well. So a little bit about SDF. I guess like the Stellar Development Foundation, or SDF for short, is a nonprofit that's founded to support the growth and development of the open source Stellar network. So like really everything that SDF does, that we do at work, we do to make the whole network as a whole succeed through our mission, which is to create equitable access to the global financial system. So we really focus on fostering sustainable Stellar use cases, be the blockchain people know and trust, and ensure the robustness and usability of Stellar. But really, since technology is open source, we have a whole ecosystem that is helping us with this. So very excited to introduce a little bit that to you. But first, I just wanted to go quickly through the agenda. I'm going to start a little bit because I'm not quite sure what the level is of the audience. So I'm having a little bit of an introduction of blockchain and Stellar, just for everyone to refresh. I will also talk a bit about asset issuance, use case examples, how to get started, and then after I've covered these basics, you're in for a real treat to hear Tyler's own history building on Stellar and hear how he single-handedly has expanded the limits of this open source technology. But before I dive into the specifics of Stellar, let's look at the lay of the land. So Stellar is a blockchain network, and at a high level, blockchain is a secure, decentralized, and transparent way for transferring valuable data without having to go to approval of intermediaries. So what do I mean by intermediaries? Each payment has to go through several intermediaries to go from point A to B. And this impacts people and businesses worldwide. So first, this is slow. Like fragmented standards mean that payments can take days. Also, it's expensive. Average fee cost to send a remittance payment, for example, was approximately like about 7% in 2021. So fees in some countries can even be greater than 10%. And this affects those that need this money most. Think about sizes of $200 being average. It's also inequitable. At its worst, the current financial system leaves out millions of people who don't have access to traditional financial infrastructure. So blockchain technology really is challenging us to think about money and value in a new way, like really presenting the opportunity to make it better, more effective, more efficient, making it possible to send value to someone without needing to trust an intermediary. Ever since an anonymous individual or entity called Satoshi Nakamoto wrote the first white paper on the Bitcoin network, different blockchain networks have started and innovated on the technology for their specific use case. To name a few examples, the Bitcoin network is created mostly to only send and trade Bitcoin. This is the currency. Ethereum was built to become another type of internet-style network or world computer with its own programming language that theoretically allows you to create any type of program within the Ethereum network. Stellar is meant for creating, storing, trading, and sending digital representations of all kinds of value. Now, before diving into the content, I want to take a brief quiz to see what you already know about blockchain. So if you would like to join, either like open a window or type in slido.com or kind of like scan the QR code on my slide, there's going to be a few quiz questions which I will ask you, and I'm going to give you a minute to get started. So there's also some small prizes involved, since I didn't want to be only like me talking and you're not doing anything. So there's work to be done and prizes to be made. So the top, I guess, 3 winners will receive $25 of worth of XLM, which is Stellar's native currency. And if you don't know what that is yet, that's fine. We're going to cover everything. Cool. So I'm just going to press next. Oh, quite a lot of people have joined already. I'm going to give it another minute or so. Awesome. I love the participation. Let's see, 24 people. I'm going to give it one more minute. And so like this is the first series, and then like we'll also have a few questions later in my talk. Also, I just wanted to point out that we'll have some questions at the end. So if you have any questions, please just write them down, since I'm not very Zoom familiar. So I cannot really read the messages at the same time for some reason. All right, so we have about 30 people. I'm going to get started. All right, are everyone ready? Which one of these is not a blockchain? You have 12 more seconds. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, it's pretty good. So actually, SushiSwap is a type of decentralized exchange called an automated market maker. It operates on blockchain, but is not a blockchain itself. All right, very good. Let's see the leaderboard. All right, awesome. Also, like, please make sure to remind me at the end of your prizes. But you know, there's still a lot to be changed. So let's go to the next question. What does NFT stand for? All right, 3 more seconds. All right, well, that was really great. Seems like a lot of people already familiar here with NFTs. That's awesome. So yeah, I guess I forgot. So yeah, it's an NFT, for those who don't know, is a digital asset that represents real world objects, or like art, music, in-game items, or videos. Really, it can be anything. And they are bought and sold online, frequently with cryptocurrency, generally encoded with the same underlying software as many cryptos. So it's a non-fungible token. What does that kind of mean? It means it can be split. So yeah, it's kind of a really interesting asset that currently is used a lot for art, but there's tons of use cases with NFTs coming up these days. So yeah, it's very exciting. All right, so I have to switch back. Guess how much this NFT has sold for. All right, take a good look. We'll go to the next question. All right, 15 seconds. 10 seconds. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, let's see what people thought. Oh, pretty good, pretty good. All right, seems that some people are already familiar. So yes, it's actually the right answer is D, CryptoPunk 7523, one of the most expensive CryptoPunks that was ever sold. Sold to a billionaire for a crazy like 11.7 million price tag last year. So yeah, actually NFTs, it's kind of crazy. Yeah, I think last year really the hype started, but it's only the beginning. So all right, so I guess I have one more question. Everyone ready? Who invented blockchain? I did tell you this, so you should be able to know. All right, is it Jeff Bezos, Satoshi Nakamoto, Bitcoin Network, or Vitalik Buterin? Which one is it? Oh, wow. I guess you didn't really pay well attention. So what I said is Satoshi Nakamoto is a name used by the presumed pseudonymous person or persons who developed Bitcoin, authored the Bitcoin white paper, and created and deployed Bitcoin's original reference implementation. So I think everyone's a lot wiser now after a quick quiz and refreshed. I certainly am at 7 a.m. here in New York. All right, so now we're going to the next slide. So I guess let's talk a bit about Stellar. As I mentioned, Stellar was founded in 2014 after Bitcoin, but before Ethereum. The network handles millions of transactions each day, submitted by businesses, banks, governments, and developers all over the world. The network uses an environmentally friendly syncing mechanism specifically designed for remittances and payments. So it has kind of like cash-like delays between transactions. In other words, very short. It's about 5 seconds confirmation time. And it's also about more or less free to use, as transactions cost way, way, way less than a penny. As I mentioned, blockchain is made for transferring valuable data without having to go through intermediaries. But this data really can be anything. Since the incentive to alter data is very strong in financial systems, it's often used for the transfer of money, or more popularly known, cryptocurrencies. So Bitcoin, the network, has Bitcoin, the currency. Ethereum is Ether. Stellar has XLM, also called Lumens, as its native asset. And like other networks, as Ethereum and other networks as well, Stellar allows anyone to create a redeemable, tradable representation of any asset and trade them very easily within the network. So anyone can create assets. And for example, I can create a cryptocurrency called AnkaCoin in minutes. It's like kind of a stupid name, but let's say I could use AnkaCoin as a community token. I could use it to grow its value, putting it on the market. Could be an in-game token, literally anything of value where I don't really need a license for. And once issued, these assets are stored on the Stellar account directly on the blockchain and not managed by a central authority such as a bank, but really by the individual who owns the keys to their account. In other words, you own your money. So some other examples of non-fiat currencies, and by fiat I mean like currencies like US dollar, etc. So some other examples of these non-fiat currencies are cryptocurrencies, like security tokens, like stocks, bonds, real estate, real-world commodities like gold, utility tokens, in platform tokens or credits, and even NFTs, short for non-fungible tokens, which are used to represent digital art and similar items. For example, South Korea-based company called Lightmint enables creators to mint NFTs on Stellar in less than 2 minutes for a very small cost and puts them on sale on the marketplace for sale. This is kind of exciting because if you know anything about NFTs, I guess on Ethereum and the type of networks, they can come pretty pricey. And so this is really cool since it's a lot more inclusive than other typical NFT platforms built on other blockchains, which can cost several $100s to mint. Recently, actually, one of company in I think that operates in Rwanda with refugees, and we're going to go a bit more into it as well, announced a collaboration to have their community create NFTs, and they don't have to be super expensive like the one that I showed you. That's about 11.7 million was it, but they can be smaller, and that can be a real type of income for that community. And so yeah, it doesn't cost $200 to mint one NFT, so you can put it more cheaper as well. Yeah, so very exciting. If you're interested, definitely look them up. But I'm gonna go on kind of with something else that makes Stellar really special. So unlike almost all other blockchain systems, Stellar can connect to real world endpoints. So people can turn their digital representations of money into something they can actually spend. And this allows businesses, banks, governments, and developers all over the world to build projects that solve real world problems for their users. Stellar makes it possible to represent these world currencies in the form of digital fiat tokens, one decentralized ledger where they can all interoperate freely. So examples of these fiat tokens are CBDCs, or central bank digital currencies, which are currently being explored by governments and banks all over the world. And also stablecoins such as USDC, digital dollar backed one-to-one by fully reserved assets. These fiat-backed tokens are issued by regulated financial institutions, money service businesses, or fintech companies with the correct licenses that we call anchors in the Stellar vernacular. It's an important alert, anchors, and that's what makes Stellar very special. These anchors connect with the existing financial system with Stellar by serving as the on and off ramps of the network. So essentially, a user obtains a Stellar network asset by depositing traditional currency with an anchor using traditional rails. Then they can hold that asset in a Stellar wallet or app, use it to make payments, or really trade it for any other assets on the network. So anchors maintain fiat reserves equivalent to the value of issued tokens. So users can redeem them back to fiat at any time. So when people hold the tokens, they can treat them just like traditional money because they know that they're redeemable for traditional money in the end. Yeah, so I mentioned USDC. It's a very exciting stable coin, stands for USDC coin. Many might also know about. It's issued by regulated financial institutions, backed by fully reserved assets, redeemable on a one-to-one basis for US dollars, and is available on multiple blockchain networks, actually, including Stellar. What makes it special about Stellar USDC is that it combines the power of Stellar network with a fully backed and trusted digital US dollar asset. So now dollars can move anywhere and to anyone in the form of Stellar USDC and convert instantly back into and out of the world's currencies. So really, I think like the Stellar USD partnership presented advantages that attracted new players into the network, or old players, I guess, like MoneyGram International. And so announced in last year, November, MoneyGram is integrating with the Stellar network and will facilitate payments through Stellar USDC to enable cash in and cash out in local currency for consumers, such as USDC as the bridge between different currencies with near instant settlement. So really, this MoneyGram is already, I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it's already an existing remittance company. They have centers and all over the world. And really, this capability will connect millions of their users to the world of blockchain and digital assets, providing them greater access to the global financial system and greater financial inclusion. So it's really these connections that flow from each other and expand the utility and power of the network, connecting global on and off ramps, or anchors, to the global world's financial system. So I guess I want to show you a few examples so you kind of get an idea of what people have and what companies are building currently on Stellar right now. For example, this Vibrant is an app that gives people in Argentina inflation beating tools by providing the ability to convert their savings into USDC. So in the past few years, the inflation rate in Argentina has reached over 50%. And that's serious, right? Imagine if you have $20 today and at the end of the year, it's only worth $10. That's not, that's a really serious concern. And so with Vibrant, they can protect the value of their salary from devaluation and safeguard long-term value and have goals for the future. So it's very exciting to see you can easily transfer in and out to different currencies with blockchain, specifically with Stellar. So in addition to tracking balances, as Bitcoin and Ethereum do, Stellar also tracks and settles trades on a decentralized ownerless way. It has a common built-in order books that pool orders and to buy or sell assets that use the same model as traditional exchanges. In addition to the decentralized exchange, we recently, or last year, automated market makers were added, also liquidity pools, which allow users to deposit assets into the reserves of an automated market maker. And these, I guess I'm not going to repeat the same thing, but I'll do AMMs for short. So these AMMs, they execute trades programmatically based on an underlying formula. and they're less complex and capital intensive than the order books on the decentralized exchange, though they can actually effectively crowdsource liquidity. So I mentioned, I think, briefly at the beginning of my presentation, SushiSwap. So SushiSwap is also an automated market maker. So it's very excited that we can kind of, I guess, combine something like Stellar, which is more of a payment technology, to something like a more decentralized DeFi features. So this really means that every token on Stellar is exchangeable with any other token on the network. And the Stellar protocol itself connects buyers and sellers with each other. 1 second, my cat is doing something weird. All right. I can't lose Wi-Fi due to my cat today. Anyway, we're back. So users can really submit bids or asks to the public network and deposit into a liquidity pool via a single simple operation. And I'll show you in a bit kind of like how this looks like, since we have a nice UI that can give you a bit more insight. But yeah, every ledger close compatible trades will automatically resolve without the use of intermediaries. So where is this used? Remittances, cross-border payments. So as I mentioned earlier in my talk, Stellar is created for payments, and specifically cross-border payments such as personal remittances. Each year, over $500 billion of value is transferred cross-border through personal remittances. Sending costs can exceed 10% when transferring money to people in developing economies. Stellar can reduce the friction and costs associated with traditional MTOs, correspondent banks, and financial payment rails. And as anchors on the network, take care of deposits, redemptions, and compliance. So as an example, two fintech companies, ARF, a cross-border settlement provider, and Tempo, a money transfer operator in Paris, use Stellar for a payment corridor via the Stellar network from Europe to the Philippines. So really integral to this new Tempo ARF corridor is the Stellar USDC, which I mentioned earlier. And to form these new corridors, Tempo accepts fiat euros from senders and converts them to Stellar USDC. Then ARF facilitates the movement of Stellar USDC for Tempo to a local payout partner in the Philippines for conversion to local fiat on the receiving side. These technologies can solve issues for people and for businesses. For example, another example is Royalties, which is a marketplace infrastructure provider for private asset investing and works in real estate. So it connects verified sponsors and investors to directly transact with each other in a secure and compliant way. So really, after Royalties kind of identified the pain points that affects these investors and these sponsors, Royalties landed on Stellar as a solution to power their hybrid on-chain and off-chain system. So it's pretty excited. Like I'm also going to show you a few other use cases that there's a wide variety. Storage is another use case. Since 2020 September, Leaf Stellar-based wallet has been live in Rwanda, Uganda, and Kenya for smartphones and basic phones. So currently, most of their customers are actually refugees in Rwanda who typically don't have a bank account. So these people no longer need to carry cash, which can be dangerous, especially when crossing borders. And instead, they can keep their money securely in the Leaf wallet. And also, once someone has a place to hold their value, they can also think of diversifying it. So DStock is a fintech company that uses buy and sell orders on the Stellar network to allow users to obtain stocks. And its goal is to make investing accessible and affordable for people in emerging markets like Vietnam and South Africa through a borderless interface for security tokens built on the Stellar network. So this really creates the opportunity for emerging markets to access financial products they've never had access to before, and really can improve the lives of millions of people while simultaneously creating exciting new business opportunities. Now, I've been speaking for some time, and I think everyone is ready for some quiz time. So I'd love to see what you have retained from what I just mentioned. And all of these companies I mentioned, they are building on Stellar at the moment. They're growing, they have users, and it's very exciting to see them grow as well. I mean, And we just covered like a few of the use cases that are out there right now. There's tons coming up, and they don't all solve real world problems. They make NFTs, they do fun things, they do all sorts of things to kind of reduce friction. So it's really excited to see that grow. All right, so if everyone wants to get ready for the next set of questions, please join this Slido. I'll just wait for people. Oh, I think like everyone, let's see, is ready. So let's get going. All right, which of these is not an asset on Stellar? All right, let me know. These are all assets on Stellar currently, or not? Maybe not. Maybe one of them is not. Let me know which one. All right, very good. I love this. All right, so actually, macaroni is currently not an asset on Stellar, believe it or not. I checked last time, and I think it still has not become an asset yet. So, but yeah, beer is an asset. COVID, believe it or not, is an asset. Hugs is one of the very first assets of Stellar, and I think like our co-founder made it. I'm not sure if it's actually redeemable for real hugs, but let's see. But anyway, currently macaroni is not is still available, so take your shot. All right, let's go. All right, we have current leaders here. What are CBDCs? All right, 7 more seconds. Let's see if you listen to me. All right, very good, very good. So yes, the answer is central bank digital currencies. They're currently explored by central banks and governments across the world. And amongst all blockchain, Stellar is especially well positioned due to secure asset issuance, enhanced compliance capabilities, transaction finality, and automatic interoperability. And if you want to learn more about that, there's more information on our site that I will give you after this talk. All right, next. Ooh. Which of these remittance companies are integrating with Stellar currently? All right, 5 more seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, I feel like like I pointed this out pretty well. So anyway, anyone who got MoneyGram is correct. So since November last year, MoneyGram's integrating with the Stellar network and is facilitating payments through the Stellar USDC to enable cash in and cash out in local currency for millions of users. Perfect. All right, I think I have one last question. All right, last question to redeem yourself. Who can contribute to the Stellar code base? All right, 5 more seconds. This is my last question. Awesome. Well, I'm great. I'm very happy that everyone listened. Yes, it is anyone. Anyone can contribute to the Stellar code base. We have open source GitHub repo that if you just type into Google GitHub Stellar, you can easily find. And yeah, so it's open source collaboration. So that's very exciting. All right, so let me see the winners. All right, congratulations, James, JW, and Hung. You should reach out to me by email, or like I can also try to reach out to you later. But if you want to just reach out to me in the messages with your email, or just email me at anke@stellar.org, then please do, and we will make sure that you receive your prize. So congratulations, and I will continue my talk a little bit. So this is really what you're all there. How to get actually started on Stellar, like how can you get involved? So we just went through what Stellar is, how it works, and we looked at a few companies where Stellar is used today. What about you? So you may think like, wait, I'm not a financial institution. What can I do with Stellar? And so really the beauty of Stellar is that you don't have to issue an asset to build on it. Like you can also build an app that offers users access to the assets that other organizations issue. So you can take advantage of a suite of APIs and use Stellar as a backend that allows users to store, trade, and transfer value. You can even leverage existing and compliant access points to offer in-app connections to real-world currencies, so your users can get on and off the network easily. So your app, in other words, can interoperate with Stellar's anchor services. And that's pretty powerful if you're a startup or student or an indie developer with a great idea. And developing on Stellar is easy. You don't need to learn a whole entire language to start building. Stellar is open source and supports common development languages called SDKs, like JavaScript and Python, with comprehensive documentation, so it's easy and accessible to get started. Developers can quickly build and interoperate on the network due to inherent functionality and expansive support resources, including a test network. So we have a public network and a test network for experimenting, extensive tutorials, and an engaging existing ecosystem to help projects gain traction immediately. So to quickly explain how kind of like our stack works, these SDKs that you see here, they are connected to Stellar REST API. They receive the information from the horizon, which handles queries and converts like the Stellar core data from that all the nodes run into a friendly format, and really serves as the bridge between apps and Stellar core. So when you're developing on Stellar, you can, for the most part, kind of like forget what's under the hood and use an intuitive REST API to submit transactions and query network data. So it's pretty cool. And to make that a little more concrete, we're going to take a look at a UI that makes it easy to interact with the network. It's called the Stellar Laboratory. I know that I'm a little over time for my thing, so I'm definitely going to quickly go over this. So I will share these resources in the chat as well. Let me just share them real quick. Making sure that everyone has these, So these are basically like resources I put together that have kind of like how to get started, and also some developer resources, including the Stellar Laboratory. I'm going to take a look right now. So basically, this is a UI interface that allows you to, if you go on the test network, allows you to create a key pair, kind of fund it, get some test network lumens. You can explore endpoints and build transactions. And really, it's quite a, once you get used to it, it's an easy interface that works with Horizon if you're not ready to code anything yet as well. So yeah, definitely check that out. Let me see. So like on Stellar, I guess the most common app is a wallet, which allows you to store, send, and exchange Stellar assets. So in the resources, I actually linked a basic wallet example, which you can find on Code Sandbox. So let me take a quick look. Yeah, that simple Stellar wallet example you can build out. We also have on our YouTube channel, we have some walkthroughs of Tyler as well, but this is like an easy, once it loads, an easy way to kind of like get started with this is on JavaScript, I believe. But we have tons of documentation in all sorts of languages, so it's pretty exciting. It's not really loading right now, but you can check it out. It's linked in the document. Perfect. So, you can like build projects in this hackathon, and if you want to continue to build on it, you can also submit your project to the Stellar Community Fund, which is an open application grant program to grow and kickstart Stellar-based projects based on community vote. So awards really range from a few thousand for hackathon-style projects to several hundred thousands for full-fledged companies. So if you're interested, definitely head over to communityfund.stellar.org. Applications open mid-February, so definitely keep an eye on it. Like if you enjoy building something on Stellar, this hackathon, you want to kind of continue to build on it, even if it's experimental, Community Fund is your place. And it also has a vibrant community that supports each other. So it's very exciting. But yeah, if building projects isn't really your thing, and you'd like to go more into a different way, there's Stellarquest, and Tyler, who is I think should be on this call, is also, we'll just tell him a bit more about this later when I'm finished. But really, Stellarquest, you can learn tech of Stellar and win awards. I think he will show a bit more, but basically, if you go over to Stellarquest, and click play. I think I linked it in the list. You have several quests. You have some educational series. There's also some, series 4 was live last year. It's also now an educational series, but definitely if you want to just get started on Stellar, you don't want to read tons of white papers, definitely head over to Stellarquest and start playing. Like the first one is pretty simple, and you don't need to learn how to code, don't need to know how to code for most part of the series 1 and 2. So we have resources linked here, including the laboratory and our documentation, and you can easily display. You have great key pairs here. You can verify your solution once you do it, and then if you have done it correctly, you can win a great NFT during live series. There's even some pretty nice awards to be won, so definitely go and check that out. Finally, like I really want to emphasize on that we have great developer community channels in Discord for anything Stellar, so you can join vibrant discussions and get this support from the Stellar community. So now I've talked for quite a bit, and Tyler, are you here?
Yes, I am.
All right, well, take it away. As I mentioned, Tyler is our ecosystem engineer. He's built on Stellar a lot. It actually came from the Stellar Community Fund, which is super exciting. But I won't do too much of an introduction since you're better yourself. So without further ado, here is Tyler Vanderhoeven.
Thanks so much, Anke. Super excited to be here. As mentioned, my name is Tyler Vanderhoeven. I'm the ecosystem engineer at the Stellar Development Foundation. I've been building Stellar applications for 5 years now. So I've been at SDF for 2 years, but I've been doing a lot of Stellar development, understand the APIs, have seen the whole program grow. A lot of times I do workshops or walkthroughs, but I thought today maybe it would be cool to kind of just take a little walkthrough of some of the applications that I've built to kind of get the wheels turning on what's possible with Stellar, particularly if you stick around and understand it at a little bit of a deeper level. It's a very interesting blockchain in that it's non-Turing complete. It's not a programming language. There's a very limited subset of things that you can do, which is maybe initially kind of limiting, but it ends up being really powerful because of the things that you're able to accomplish with that limited subset of functionality. There's a couple of things that guarantees. First is cost efficiency, where you're not going to have to spend a whole lot of gas fees to move things around to actually make progress or build applications. It's also a purpose-built blockchain. This is something I've been thinking about more and more as we look at the competitive blockchain landscape and these blockchains that are perhaps not as purpose-built, or you can kind of build whatever you want and you're welcome to construct anything. It ends up, from a governance perspective, ends up being kind of whoever has the most money is going to pick what this blockchain is used for, and it'll start to edge out newcomers. We're seeing this a lot in Ethereum, and even some of these layer 2 chains like Polygon, where fees can skyrocket if a platform comes in that's willing to pay much higher fees. With Stellar being a purpose-built blockchain, though, it's not about how much value or money you bring to the network. It's your purpose. Like, what are you actually trying to accomplish? So Stellar, as its purpose, is to create equitable access to the global financial system. That's a very broad, very specific purpose. But you can always be sure, so long as your use case kind of fits underneath at some level that banner, you're welcome here. You're going to be supported here. You can build a 100-year company here. And that's a very unique and exciting thing to be able to kind of be positioned as. So anyway, about 5 years ago, I found Stellar. They were I think they were called what was STRs back in the day. So now they're XLM. They were STRs way back. So there's like this whole conversion program. They switched over different protocols. They were definitely in the growth stages. They only had a few core engineers. There was a program called the Stellar Build Challenge, SBC. So it was very similar to the Stellar Community Fund, a little bit less decentralized, but was just a fantastic place to get started. It's kind of like you can build something experimental. You can try out the APIs, get engaged with the community that was there, and win prizes. It was awesome. The ability to just kind of experiment or play with something and get rewarded for it was kind of a new concept. It's always hard to find funding in open source technology or this sort of moonlighting experimental technology. And with Stellar, you really have that opportunity. And with a lot of blockchains, you have that opportunity to experiment or play with a technology, to build out some experimental use cases, to really dive deep and get rewarded for it. We've kept that going, right, through the Stellar Build Challenge all the way through now to the SBC or the SCF, where you've got this community funding opportunity where it's not just the Stellar Development Foundation that's picking projects to fund. We basically provide a pool of lumens that then the community allocates to the projects it wants to see funded. It's awesome. It's been going for quite a while now. We've done so many different iterations. Anka's done a tremendous job growing that community and continuing to mature that platform into something that funds meaningful projects and ensures that projects have the best success opportunities going forward. So not just giving them money, but helping them to identify business needs and to grow and create partnerships and feedback loops. It's hard to build a business, but the SCF has really been growing into a tremendous place to start something and then to also see it grow. I'm going to walk through, am I able to share my screen? I think so. Let me pull this. Hold on one second. Let me pull this over. I'm going to share a couple of different projects that I have built in the hopes that it can inspire a little bit and then maybe trigger some questions that people might have. See if I can find my desktop. You see my screen now, right? Hopefully.
Yes, we see your screen.
Awesome. Perfect. All right, so this is the landing page, obviously, for the community fund. Write that URL down. That's one you're going to want to visit. There's one of the nice things, I guess. First, maybe to back up, one of the hard things is like, what should I build? What should I launch? What kind of things get funded? Well, there's a whole previous winners tab here where you can look through all of the different projects that have won in the past, the kinds of things that have been built. Inspiration is just so important, particularly in this very new cutting edge technology. What should I build is a really important question to answer. So looking through previous projects can often trigger the entrepreneurial mind to find the problem that you want to solve. So I've built a few projects. I built a project called Popcoin, which is like a microtransaction API tool. So you could actually charge per API call, something you just could not do with something like Stripe, where you've got pretty significant fees, but then also minimum payments from things like credit cards. But with the Stellar blockchain and the ability to do microtransactions, you could actually charge per API call. So just this very direct link between the costs associated with running your business and the payments in. And that was one of the first ones I built. One of the next ones that I built is still around. It's called Color Glyph. And you can see right away, this isn't really a remittance company, but it's a pixel glyph creation and trading game where you can make these little pixel glyphs, very nostalgic, and then you can trade and collect them. It was one of the first NFT type projects. It was a ton of fun to build. Definitely took off. We're actually working on a revamp of this platform with some of the new updates that's come to Stellar. I built this, I don't know, 4 years ago or something like that. So it's due for a refresh, but all kinds of fun things. So one of the neat things about this one is each color is its own asset code. Assets are first-class citizens in the Stellar ecosystem, where they're kind of secondary citizens in something like Ethereum, where it can be kind of tricky to set up a secondary asset. In Stellar, these assets are first-class citizens. So each one of these colors is its own asset. And so each time you trade or create a glyph, you're actually doing a multi-currency transaction. So one of the purposes behind when I originally built it and entered into the competition was to showcase this concept of a multi-currency transaction where you've kind of are collecting a whole bunch of different currencies together and making like a batch trade for some singular asset, or even multi-currency to multi-currency where you kind of bundle these things up. So taking a simple game and packaging it, and then behind the scenes is kind of this more complex, revolutionary type of concept that just isn't possible in other financial markets. So people have taken this idea and converted it into non-NFT use cases where they bundle up different offerings. So they take a large collection of assets, put them into a bundle, and then sell that whole bundle as a singular item. There was a time where people were using it to actually sell like a blockchain blocks for other blockchains. Like it would take a Bitcoin or an Ethereum block and put it into this like color glyph and then sell that unit. That was kind of interesting. But again, just that idea of something simple or almost stupid, right? This little game, but can expose some very interesting functionality that can be applied to lots of different types of use cases. So that was pretty fun. I built a couple other tools after that. So I built a GraphQL Explorer, so like almost like a Horizon replacement for GraphQL to help explore the Stellar chain. One of the ones, so when I joined SDF, one of my initial tasks, and really the one that has grown beyond all the others, is this sort of top of funnel developer channel. So when somebody lands on Stellar or even is just on Google, like, okay, what blockchain should I learn? There's 10,000 of them now. Which one should I dive into? Making Stellar like an easy, obvious, and approachable choice. And that being Stellarquest. So there's more work that needs to be done here. This was kind of an experiment that I built a year ago. Like, could I build a game, an educational game that could take off, like people would actually do it, but would be a good reward mechanic. So almost like this idea of an XLM faucet, but gated through developer education. So you can get XLM so long as you're completing verified programming tasks or API tasks. And so that was kind of the first iteration of Stellarquest, where there was this series one of different relatively achievable tasks that people would accomplish. And we have this, we're going to have this year, really this quarter, we're going to be dividing this out into the idea of Stellarquest Learn, where you've got this course-like material that you're going through. And then what we have right now, which is Stellarquest Live, where there's this live event where a new series will go live. Like if you start to click through some of these, you'll start to notice that it feels like they were created for some sort of live event where something was going on right at that moment. And it's not anymore. So we're working on adjusting some of the content, but these went live at a specific time. The whole community would come and compete for, series one, quest one, figured out whoever figures out the fastest wins the most. We've again gone through different iterations through the different series to teach Stellar. So it's this approachable, like, I want to learn Stellar, I want to get some lumens, but having that go through a educational mechanic. So you're learning how to use the lumens you're getting, rather than just learning about what the Stellar chain is. You're learning how to actually implement and use it and build on it. So it's a really unique platform in that sense, and has helped just hundreds and hundreds of developers learn Stellar, and we're hoping to continue to grow that. So this would be a great place to learn. But then also we've got our Discord community, which just has a load of like-minded blockchain engineers that have learned Stellar, that love Stellarquest. It's a good kind of launch pad into other places. There's just so much to get involved with in Stellar. There's like a place for you, regardless of what kind of application you want to build. So long as you're underneath that umbrella of equitable access, you're trying to really provide financial services where they don't exist, or improve financial services where there's room for improvement. There's a place for you to fit in and build successful businesses, companies, or even just get involved with what other people are doing. So I mean, I love Stellarquest. I think it's a fantastic place. It's kind of the place to land when you first are familiarizing yourself with Stellar from a technical perspective. And also just a really good launch pad into other places. Most of our community starts at Stellarquest and then we'll go other places. And one of those other places, if you're maybe a little bit more advanced, and you've kind of found your feet, you've gone through a few different series, and now you're really feeling like, okay, it's time to take the next step. Or maybe you come from a more traditional blockchain background where decentralization and smart contracts are a big thing. 2 years ago, I started a project called Stellar Turrets, which is this smart contract. It's a layer 2 smart contract protocol. Stellar is, again, very unique in that it's a non-Turing complete programming primitive, payments primitive. But we still need the ability, right, to create decentralized, like actually generate those transactions in a decentralized way. So there's no reliance on a third party. There's no requirement for a reliance on a third party to provide these financial services. And right now, that's Stellar Turrets, where you've got this network of computers that run JavaScript contracts that generate Stellar transactions. So whenever you build a Stellar transaction, it's this composed thing that traditionally happens in isolation or in a centralized server somewhere where you say, I will create this transaction whenever somebody hits my API endpoints. Typically that's fine because the transaction executes in a decentralized network on Stellar. But it's still important to have an option for generating transactions in decentralized ways. So you completely decentralize the trust mechanics for whatever financial service you're providing. Stellar Turrets, again, the way to do that. It's unique in that it's all server side and it's JavaScript. I would query you to find another blockchain where you can write JavaScript contracts that are actually secure and decentralized. You can here, and they're pretty fantastic. We've got a couple of different protocols that are launching. Again, this has been a work in progress for the last 2 years, kind of a passion project of mine, making this functionality available to our developers. But if smart contracts, decentralized finance, or financial services is something that you're really interested in, I would strongly suggest going to turrets.stellar.org and starting to explore some of the API docs, the Discord working group. Again, you're probably getting the feeling like, oh my gosh, these guys have a Discord server for everything. We do. Community is really important to us. Again, we're a nonprofit open source organization. So community is where things happen and how things get done. So to be able to really understand and implement, like you've got a family, you've got a team of friends, people that are going to help you build things. When you've got questions, there's a server for you to ask those questions in. We'll have events and chats, and it's a ton of fun. It's just a great place to kind of go and familiarize yourself, kind of create a tribe or a clan that's all learning something and moving in the same direction. Stellar Turrets being the one for this idea of decentralized DeFi, smart contracts. I spend a lot of my time there right now. Between that and Stellarquest, that's where you're going to find me hanging out the most. So if you've got good questions, good ideas, we'll probably be chatting in the near future. Speaking of smart contracts, one of the more recent projects I've been working on exploring is NFTs. NFTs are really interesting. And I'm not going to get way into what in the world an NFT is, non-fungible token. That's not helpful. But again, it's just this idea of tracking ownership. It's like the paper trail of ownership associated with something very specific. So whether it's art or some sort of creative asset, it could be anything that's kind of this non-fractionable. You can't divide it up, or each unit of a thing is a thing. Whereas like if you take $1, you can split it into quarters, dimes, cents, pennies, whatever. With an NFT, every unit is itself a single whole unit of something, right? Most of the time, particularly this last year, it's been associated with art. And that's not a bad use case for NFTs. There's lots of other ones, but the thing that's interesting to me is kind of combining the NFT, the asset, the unit of a thing, with some sort of smart contract experience. So I've been working on a small collection in the free time, whatever free time I do have, of a couple of different NFT experiences. So kind of combining the sale or distribution of an NFT of an asset with some sort of experience. So combining the concept of an NFT with a smart contract together in a unique sort of community experience. So I've got 3 of them right now. So if NFTs are kind of this weird experimental smart contract, not really sure what kind of groundbreaking, world-changing thing you want to build yet, NFTs is a really approachable, safe place to start because it's kind of trendy right now, but it's also, there's loads of room for innovation with this like low security threshold, in the sense that you can kind of build whatever you want sort of and not have to worry about, will this scale necessarily? It's a game, it's fun, it's playful. It doesn't need to be world class or support billions of dollars sort of thing. So this one here was escalated royalties payments. So royalty payments are a big topic right now with NFTs. How do you kind of do residual profits for either original owners or creators or sponsors, investors into a piece of art or an NFT? Think of maybe real estate, paying back shareholders, even fractionalizing the company. There's all kinds of interesting things you could do. Here, I just have a simple piece of art, and then I pay back royalty payments to the previous 95 owners. There's reasons that it's 95. There's reasons for the different pricing scaling. And for those details, you read the drop document. There's a document that walks through exactly what the contracts are, what the logic behind it, the math behind how this particular NFT works. But that one was exploring royalty payments back to previous purchasers of the piece of art. We've got another one here called The Dig, where I split up a 40 by 40 pixel grid art. And instead of buying the whole NFT, you actually buy pixels of the NFT. And then once all of the pixels are purchased, this whole NFT will mint and be issued to anyone who is part of the dig. Anyone who minted some of these pixels, who dug up some of these pixels, will be minted the final NFT. As you can see, we're only 70% of the way there. So there's actually a few more pixels to mint. This one's still in progress, but it's, again, the idea of sort of a weird social experiment around the sale of an NFT, all controlled by one of these Stellar Turret smart contracts. And read the drop documents to see the rest of the details on that one. And then this one I recently launched and concluded right around this last Christmas, where there was a one-of-one NFT that was going to mint on Christmas morning. And whoever had the most of these little dark thief NFTs, so this was an unlimited asset, you could buy as many of these dark thieves as you wanted, and whoever held the most in an account on Christmas morning got that final NFT. So that one concluded. This tag is a lie. It's no longer live. That ended 17 days ago. But anyway, all controlled again by a smart contract. So I write a JavaScript smart contract. It's probably like 200 lines of code, not a whole ton. I deploy it onto the Stellar Turrets network, and then I go to bed at night. I don't have servers running. It's all running on the network, all doing its thing in a decentralized manner. I can't stop it. I've deployed it. It's quite fantastic. But all of these have been super fun, very experimental. They all have drop docs, so you can read all the details on how they work and what the contracts were, so you can kind of clone those and spin off your own. Maybe you want to do a different version of escalated royalties, or use the dig for something other than pixel art. There's all kinds of interesting things you could get away with there. All right, so I'm done talking now. That has been a ton of fun. That's kind of me and the things that I've been working on. If you want to get connected or ask questions, you can jump into one of those Discords and start chatting. And I'm sure someone, if not me, will get back to you. You can also get to me at TYVDH on Twitter. Otherwise, this has been a ton of fun. Hope you all continue to start building on Stellar. There's a whole ton of things to learn and things to build. Looks like maybe there's a couple of questions. I don't know what the agenda is necessarily.
Yeah, we have like 10 more minutes. Let's and I can actually like ask them to you, Tyler, and then you can answer. I already answered you. Okay, so like from the first question, do you think governments are going to want to create their own blockchain that is compatible with their own CBDCs, hence having detrimental effects on other blockchains? What is your take on this?
Probably not the best person to ask.
Yeah.
Like my personal opinion is I think it's going to vary based on whatever jurisdiction you're talking about. I think the primary like legitimate concern is scalability with a lot of these blockchains, and what happens if a billion people, if 500 million people start trying to transact on a blockchain, what's going to happen to that blockchain when you don't have control over the fee structure, or you're not a majority stakeholder in governance tokens? Like there's some legitimate concerns there for the scalability and mutability of functionality on a blockchain that can be a bit concerning. But there are smarter people who know more than I do about that particular use case and the implementation is jurisdiction to jurisdiction. So I won't pretend like I know the right answer to that question. But blockchain at the end of the day, right, it's just technology like anything else. And decentralization is a big part of that. But even decentralization doesn't mean one thing. What is decentralization? It's the lack of centralization. So really you only need two. You don't need 10 million different nodes. More decentralization might be good. It still depends on who those entities are, but there's no simple, easy, one size fits all answers to most of the questions in crypto. It's not a good, great question, but I don't think there is one answer, and there are smarter people.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, CBDCs, as I mentioned, it's an interesting topic. And also, like, you know, I'm in the chat, I linked a resource document, what CBDCs mean on Stellar. So if you want to look into this topic a bit more, definitely do so. Yeah, and we can go on. All right, another question. If anyone can build anything on Stellar, how do you filter scam products or trash? You know, it's a bit harsh from the ecosystem.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. It's an open network. You can put whatever you want on it. A lot of the filtering, I mean, again, like one man's trash is going to be another man's treasure, right? So we don't make those decisions. SDF doesn't make those decisions, and you don't make those decisions. When it comes to trying to filter out assets that you'd rather not see, it comes down to the interfaces that you're using, in either allow listing certain asset pairs and not allow listing others, or you can implement some governance to where there's voting for assets. It's a really tricky thing, particularly when you have an open network. It doesn't just come from like projects. It also comes from, we've seen this a whole lot in the Stellar Community Fund, of making sure that a community can make healthy decisions, that there isn't an inappropriate suppressing of viable votes, that it isn't just the people who have the most money. Like, what is the asset or the value that we're looking for from a majority? But you can't really take a dictatorial standpoint of this is not something anyone should see. You don't get to make that decision. It's an open network. And if you want to provide some level of filtering, you build an interface that cuts out that cruft. But at the end of the day, there's this backend that stores all of this stuff. There's a blockchain that has all this information, but how that's represented, how that's surfaced and interfaced with, will differ depending on the audience, the use case. So that's how I would answer that question. It's really interface based, which is really nice that we have this separation automatically already with Horizon, where you don't have to have everything to get started. Like, you don't have to run a node. You don't have to fill up a database with stuff you're not interested in. You don't have to run a node at all. You don't even need to run Horizon. You can just make API calls and start filtering things as you want.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very exciting. It's very interesting, you know, like these questions. So I'm glad people are asking. All right, there's a tricky one, a difference between Stellar and Ripple.
So the biggest one I would say is just open the nonprofit versus the for-profit model. I won't pretend to know exactly what all of Ripple's APIs and implementation use cases are. Every blockchain has its purpose or its mission that it's trying to accomplish, but there is a tremendous amount of significance in Stellar being a nonprofit organization, particularly as all blockchains are kind of in this bootstrap phase, where funding goes is really important. What projects receive funding is really important, right? If the value that we're trying to add to the network is monetary value exclusively, it's going to trend towards whoever has the most money controls the network. Whereas if you're mission driven and a nonprofit that doesn't derive monetary value from running the network, we can stay focused on being mission aligned and purpose driven, where we're trying to solve a problem that the world has before we focus on getting, before we ever really need to have a lot of like actual money. Like our focus is not on getting money on the network, it's in solving this problem of equitable access. That's significant, but I won't pretend to know the ins and outs of Ripple. I'm a Stellar expert.
Exactly. Well, yeah, that's well said, and definitely like look into it more. What I do know is that I think like originally, like some people say, like, oh, it was a copy from Ripple, but that's not true. Stellar is completely a code made from scratch. So it's very exciting if you want to learn more. I think like I also put a white paper link somewhere in there. So definitely take a look. All right, we have 5 more questions. So Tyler, are you ready? First one, do we need to have crypto to build NFTs on Stellar, and how should one get started?
Yep. Stellar runs on XLM. XLM is the utility token of the network. You can get it on basically any exchange. There are also, like, if we have a live Stellarquest going on, there's opportunities to get XLM through competing in that. There's also a program called Stellarquest Bounties, where there's opportunities to get some XLM. But the best one is probably just go on exchange. Thankfully, again, because we're an equitable access blockchain, it's going to be super cheap. So you don't need to spend $500 to mint an NFT. You can spend 10 cents. It's very equitable. Like there's a tremendous amount of opportunity. You can go a long way with a very little amount. So you do, and the best place to get started, I would actually suggest lightmint.com. That's our NFT. Well, it's Fred, our resident expert on NFTs. That's probably where I would get started on looking through what other NFTs folks are minting. And then it also has a great interface for actually minting NFTs. You can connect wallets you already have. And it's the nice thing again about blockchain is you mint an NFT on Lightmint, and it's a Stellar asset. It's not locked down to Lightmint. It's not a Lightmint NFT. It's just an NFT. You can take it anywhere, do anything with it. He's done a really good job making sure that it's not proprietary. It's all just Stellar stuff, and he's built this Lightmint interface. But you can that's probably one of the better places to get started if you're looking for just more standard NFTs. If you want to get crazy, then you might want to look up the smart NFT stuff that I linked, where you can combine NFTs with smart contracts.
Yeah, no, sounds good. Very exciting. I think like NFTs are one of my favorite things about blockchain. I think the concept's crazy. All right. So next question: are there any ways non-technical people can get involved with Stellar?
Definitely. So one of the best ways for non-technical, again, there typically needs to be some level of what do you want to bring? What do you want to produce? What do you want to build? What are your skill sets? And even if it's not an established skill set, one of the coolest things about blockchain is it's a great place for you to try something new, right? So you've like, oh, I've always wanted to get into doing technical documentation, or I've always wanted to produce technical videos, or maybe you've wanted to get into programming. This is a place for people to build new things, to try. Like, it's not established, right? There aren't pros really here, or at least not in mass. Look at this. I'm like a Star Trek character, but the light coming in. So anyway. So if you're a writer, you want to be a writer, there's just a lot of technical documentation that's written. If you're good at researching, or you've wanted to be getting into research, like research different protocols on Ethereum and just do deep dives into those, and then walk through like, okay, how would you replicate something like that on Stellar? Why would you or wouldn't you? Another one is like Discord support. So you jump into our Discords and help people learn, like help them level up, right? So maybe you're not a wizard, maybe you're not a genius, but you know more than somebody, right? So help them out. provide Discord support, just be a really positive influence in the ecosystem, build your tribe, your clan. There are so many things for non-technical or non-programmers to do. And this is a message we need to be getting out more and more, just as an industry at large, is programmers are great. They can build cool technology, but if nobody understands how to use it, if nobody's excited about it, if nobody's explaining it, if nobody's comparing it, it's going to fall on not only deaf ears, it's not going to fall on anybody's ears because nobody marketed it. So there's a tremendous amount of opportunity for people to get involved, just explaining things, talking about things, starting podcasts about stuff or events, just jumping into Discords and chatting with people, writing about stuff, doing video breakdowns. There's a load of opportunities where we kind of stop this whole like shilling of tokens and price of things. Like, we're building businesses. We're trying to build equitable access. We're trying to solve problems, not just buy low, sell high. Like, you need to do more than that. But there's so much more to do than that. It's a really exciting industry that's producing all kinds of unexplored use cases through this technology. And we need people that are willing to take a more serious, long-term, deep dive look to generate those insights and get entrepreneurs excited and start to make connections between individuals that build teams, that build businesses, that solve problems, that change the world. So yeah, there's a ton of opportunity for non-technical people. I would say get started in our Discord, find other people that have questions and start answering those.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. I linked the Stellar Global Discord, which is run by community members. One of them is Sam Connor, and he actually is very active in posting like videos, events, meetups, all sorts of things to really help spread the word. Since, this technology, it's open source and it's not owned by anyone. If anything, it's owned by the whole ecosystem of people. Also, if you're interested, into more of the entrepreneurial aspect, I work also on a Discord with the Stellar Community Fund. If you know a lot about Stellar, you get into our community, you can become a verified member where you can actually vote on projects you want to see grow in the ecosystem and really like push for use cases you find interesting. So there's definitely ways to get involved, and it's super exciting. All right, I know we're a bit over, but we have 3 more questions, so we can get through this. Tyler, any upcoming projects or integration to look out for in 2022?
I don't know. Are there? Like, are you going to build anything, guys? Like, you've got to make the cool stuff. No, there's tons of stuff that's coming out. I think one of the really neat ones that I'm excited about is the work that Script3 is doing. I think it's Script3.io. They've got their yield blocks coming out. There's a project called Aquarius. It's actually been running for a while, but they're gaining a lot of steam. Like, AMM's kind of changed the game a bit for attraction to the Stellar network, attraction of capital, which is then attracting more innovative use cases. There's a big, I would say big, shift sort of in the focus here, where 2022 is kind of be the year of innovation, where we're trying to introduce a lot of things, where AMM's kind of opened up the doors for that. Stellar Turrets is keeping to push the wedge through that door, and we're starting to see projects like Script3 really introduce some very powerful and interesting earn mechanics or lending mechanics on the network. Obviously, MoneyGram will be coming out. That's a really interesting one. But more than like the projects are awesome, and there's some really good ones coming out and that are being built. But there's just so much opportunity right now, where the technology is finally at a place where innovation is just readily available between these different toolings, right? You've got AMMs combined with Stellar Turrets, and then the projects that are starting to build on top of that, where all of these things have open APIs that you can access and integrate with. That's just going to explode a lot of the innovative use cases and products. So the answer to that question, I think, lies in your own brain, where 2022 should be the year that you build something incredible on Stellar, along with a lot of these other companies and enterprises that are doing the same thing.
Yeah, no, great. I'm very, very excited about 2022 myself as well. All right, what programming language do you recommend to get started building on Stellar?
I'm a JavaScript guy. That's the only one I know. It's definitely the most accessible from my perspective. And I think if you want to get involved in like the widest breadth of implementation, JavaScript's going to be the best. because you can go all the way from implementation to a front end where something is accessible. So if you don't have any programming experience, JavaScript is definitely the way to get involved. There's just a load of classes and entry level access with JavaScript. Python's the same, but Python is more of that strict backend. You can do some front end stuff with Python, but JavaScript's going to be much easier, in my professional, personal opinion. That's what I would suggest.
Yeah, definitely. And I think like in the resources that I linked earlier, and I will link it again, I just linked the SDKs. We have several SDKs. So, depending on your developer language, you can choose the one you want. Definitely JavaScript, we have tons of tutorials. And also in the resources I linked, we have a nice little code sandbox example that I showed earlier, which makes it easy to get started. Also, I think, Tyler had a lot of, I can link some like kind of how to get started developing on Stellar tutorials later in this chat. I guess like let me see, because like we kind of answered this question before, and how can someone new pick up relevant knowledge in the space with it being technical or non-technical, or any career options for non-techies. So it's a little similar as last question, but definitely maybe career is something we could go into, like what you think.
Yeah, my suggestion is get involved with the community. So find a Discord, find where people are talking, start answering questions, figure out what their issues are. Like you need to prove yourself as an asset. And it's just going to be the best place to learn. Like, what questions should I be asking? What things should I be learning? Well, where are people getting stuck? Where are their problems? What answers can you provide and make yourself an asset to someone? That's the best place to get started for a non-technical person. But it's also where you're going to find work, because you get paid to be an asset to someone. So doing that for free kind of first is definitely going to be my suggestion. I would say do something you love. Like, don't do it if you hate it, but find your niche in the crypto community, or whatever crypto community is most interesting to you, whether that be problem oriented or the technical aspect of something is really interesting. Maybe there's some persona in there that is just very inspiring to you. Get involved. Dive into those ecosystems. Crypto is such a community-centric technology, which is kind of unique to technology. People will get organized around programming languages to some extent, but Stellarquest is crypto in general, blockchain is just this really unique one, where like every blockchain has a massive community, or at least an engaged community. A lot of it can be just price shilling, but if you find one that's really technically sound, that's focused on solving problem, again, like purpose-built blockchains, there's just a ton of really interesting people solving really interesting problems that are always understaffed. So there's a tremendous amount of opportunity. It'll take some time, right? You got to level up. These aren't always easy things to understand, but document your journey. Where did you get stuck? Where's the documentation lacking in your own journey? Document that. Like, create your own course, make yourself valuable. Quite a few of the people that actually work at SDF started in the community, started in the ecosystem, just documenting where they were getting stuck and providing resources to people that were in a similar situation, and they end up getting hired to continue doing those sorts of things.
Yeah, definitely. And also, like, I come from a non-tech background. I think like very different from blockchain, and got more into like the event space. So there's tons of opportunities, since like companies like Stellar Development Foundation or nonprofits, right, that work on these. You need business development, you need events, you need marketing. So, and you get to work with these technologies in various ways, even aside from a non-tech. So definitely, it's super exciting, and definitely look into it. We have one last question, and I can answer it a bit more since we're a bit over time. It's asked about the consensus mechanism that Stellar is using. I also shared, since Tyler, feel free to answer or not, but I did share the white paper on Stellar consensus protocol and a video that kind of goes into the deep dive of Stellar. But yeah, feel free to, if you want to answer.
I think there's a really good tech talk at Meridian, this most recent Meridian, on it by I forgot her name. I don't know if that was the same. Yeah, Marta. She's done a lot of really good. She did an engineering talk, I think, as well. Maybe that was the YouTube that you linked. That would probably be better to go into. Like, I'm not a core engineer, so I could pretend like I knew what was going on. But it'd be better to hear it from somebody that actually builds it. So that would be my suggestion, both going through the white paper, but then also the YouTube videos where it's discussed more in depth and actually has diagrams that'll help explain the consensus mechanism, because it is a really interesting one. The SCP is a very unique consensus algorithm, but even outside of just the algorithm, the concept of how you arrive at decentralization is really interesting. Because a lot of them, again, they're going to be like proof of stake, proof of work. This one's a little bit more like agreement of trust, which is unique. It takes a very pragmatic approach about what's actually valuable in decentralization, how much decentralization you actually need to be sufficient for a financial platform, which is unique, really interesting. So it's a good deep dive to take.
Yeah, definitely. Sorry for the music. For some reason, when I try to open it, like automatic ads started. So anyway, like, thank you so much for answering these, and also, like, we linked these videos here, like Stellar consensus protocol, consensus mechanisms in general. So it's might be a bit difficult to understand. So these videos will definitely help. I also answered another question, I think, earlier regarding, like, what's the main difference between Bitcoin, Ethereum, and kind of like, the proof of work with Stellar. So I answered it already, but definitely, these crash course, these talks that I linked here are super helpful as well. All right, that's it for today. Well, thank you so much, and I'll let NUS Fintech Society round off. But thank you, Tyler, and thank you everyone for joining. And for the winners of today's quiz, please reach out to me at anke@stellar.org. I'm just going to type it in here so that you know. So then I will make sure that your $25 worth of lumens are being sent to you. Thank you so much.